So hi everyone, welcome back to the much anticipated 0x14 MySQL task. Now I know this took a while to actually come out, but I was trying to find the best way and the most efficient way in terms of time and speed to achieve this. So now we've done the first task 0, task 1, 2, and 3 in the previous video. So if you've not done that, just go ahead and click the link, the video link on the top right corner of your screen, and just go and watch that. So then you need to make sure all of these checkers are the task 4 on this video. So just if you have any missing ones or any ones that are red on task 0, 1, 2, 3, just click the top right corner of your screen. There's a link to the previous video. Go and watch that first. Now, when everything is green, now we begin the task 4, which is the actual replication. Now, the whole idea of this is we want to enable our Web02 server to be able to log into the Web01 on the MySQL and actually make copies of data that is there. So we have a database. We're trying to create a replica on the Web02. So now, before that can happen, we need to enable the Web02 MySQL to log into the Web01 and actually read the contents of the database. So now let's dive into the task. Now the first thing we need to do is actually prepare the servers for this approach. So we go into my Git repository. We have the setup master script. So now this script basically does just a few things. We are trying to edit the configuration file here. So the first thing we do is disable UFWO firewall. This is just for complication purposes. We are trying to avoid any firewall issues. So we disable the firewall for this task. Then you can activate it when you are done later. Now, one of the important things here is the bin log db. Now, this one is like specifying the database we're trying to replicate. You know, we have multiple databases inside of the MySQL server. So this is the one we are trying to replicate, the TYRELLCORP. That's the name of the database. Now, we also have the server ID. It's one more important part of it. So each of the servers need to have their own like ID, unique identities for the replication to work. Now, also one more thing for the Web01, which is the master. So we have the Web01 to be the master server. We have the Web02 to be the replica or the slave server, because that's one I'll be reading and be storing the replica status. Now, the bind address needs to be set to the public IP address 0.0.0.0, so we can actually listen for connections on the public IP address. You know, by default, if you have like MySQL installed on your device now and you try to access it, you're accessing it via localhost because it's on the same device. But now we need to enable this MySQL server to listen on the public IP address. That's what will enable the slave server, the replica server, to read the data. So that's one more important part of this, and the rest are just like default configuration stuff, the error log and the likes. So now after we like write all of this out, we copy it into the configuration file for MySQL, which is this. Then the script is done. It restarts the MySQL server. And then for the slave, you can check that also. For the slave, we just lift in just the bin log do db, also the name of database, and you can see here we have the ID, server ID as 2 for the slave server, and then we have the bind address to be 127, which is localhost, because we don't need any public connections on this one. So that is also that, and let's go ahead and log into our servers and begin implementation. So let me go ahead and get my IP address for the Web01 and connect to this server. Yep, so now I have SSH Ubuntu at. Now that should get me to my Web01 server. I would create a new tab also to get into the Web02. I suggest you have both servers logged in on different terminals just to make things easier for you actually. So now let me just get this. So I'll be logged into the 2. SSH Ubuntu at IP address. So now that should get me to my Web02 server. So the Web01 is logged in already. The Web02 is also logged in. So now let's go to the next steps. Now, as I said, the first thing we need to do is run the script to prepare the servers. So the first one here is the setup master. So that's for the Web01. Remember, the setup master is for the Web01 because the Web01 is the master server. Now let's go into the Web01 and run the setup master script. So nano, or you can use any editor you want actually. So I'll just use nano for this case. Nano, and then the name of the file. Let's say master. You can use any name you want, of course. So now I'll just paste the script, save. You don't need to edit anything, so just save and exit. So I'll make this executable chmod plus x, then the file name, then I'll run the script. So that shouldn't take a while to load, actually, just a few seconds, and then it should be done. Yeah, done. So now the setup slave also, go ahead and run that on the web02 server. So let me grab this web02. So now nano slave. So now as soon as I've done this, now both servers will be prepared, and then we'll begin the replication process. So also I have a script for that, actually just like a log of commands. So we go into the new file, which is the replication file. Now this has a list of commands that we need to run to actually make all of these things work. Now we need to have a user that is going to be like the slave user, so to say. So the slave user is the user that will log into the web01 server, read the content, and then now save it into the web02. So now we need to create the web01, which is the slave server. So all of this is just the web01 is just to show you that, okay, this command is for the web01 server. So let me go ahead and copy this and then I'll log into my web01 server first, actually, my MySQL server. So to do that, you run the MySQL root -p, and now your root password. So now I'm logged into my SQL server, and now I need to run the command, which is the create user command. Now we're creating a user, so we'll be able to log into the server from the public IP address, of course. Now the name of the username of the user is the slave, like the slave user, and the @ symbol and this %sign states that this user should be able to log in from any IP address. So now that is that about that, identified by, and this is the user's password. You can change anything, you use anything you want for the password. But I'm trying to keep things simple, so just now I'll run this command. Now you can see query okay. If you have any errors, just leave them in the comment section. And before we continue, actually do like the video and subscribe to my channel for more things like this. Now after that, we need to grant certain permissions. So grant replication slave. So what this does is we are enabling this user to be able to act as a replica user, to be able to read and replicate data that we have on the web01 server. So now let me paste this here also. That is also right. And now the next thing to do is flush privileges. That is also done. So now we can run show master status and see actually what it's going to show. So make sure you leave this like stored. Oh Christ, what's that? Yeah. Now make sure you leave this open because we are going to be needing some data from this table actually. So just leave that right there and then move to the web02 server and begin doing some things. So now right about now, we can even test like our idea about the public IP address connection. So we can actually log into the web01 server from the web02 using the MySQL user that we created earlier. Now remember in this place we said we created the user slave and we said it can log in from any IP address, right? So let's try to do that. Let's try to log into the MySQL server on the web01 from the web02. Now we can see MySQL-u, which is the user. Now the user is slave because we're trying to log into the web02 user slave. And now we say the host, right? -h is host. But now instead of using the normal like localhost stuff, we copy the IP address for the web01 server and see if it works. Then also -p, which is the password option. We put the password that we used here, like the password from this password from here, which is the just default password. If you use a different password, make sure you put that in instead. But now just my password should work. So now we are logged into the web01 server from the web02. Let me just exit for now. We don't need this yet. So now I'll log into my local MySQL server on the web02 using MySQL -u root -p. So now the root password is whichever one you used for the previous connection. So let's continue. Now I've logged into my SQL server on the web02, and now we begin to run these commands. So I'll go ahead and copy this. I'll be changing a few things in this command. So let me just paste and begin changing some stuff. Now the first thing we need to change is this master log position, right? This value. So I'll change this to a number, but where do we get the number from? If I go back to this web01, you see this position that is right here. So we need to get this number and paste it in that position. So let's copy this 749 and go back to this and change this value. So log position, then put the number there instead. So it might be a different number for yours. Just make sure you put that number that is showing right here. Now the next thing is the log file name, which is this master log file. So we need to change this value also, master log file name. So we need to change that to this. Under the file column, we see this MySQL bin 001. So we copied this also and paste it there instead. So let me remove this master log recorded file. I'll paste this. Right, so the next thing to do is the slave password. Like, you know, we created the slave user, right? So now we need to put the password here. So if you use a different password, make sure you put that instead. But I used the normal single password, like this user that we created here. The credentials for this user is the slave, which is the username, then a password, which is the password. So now I'll put the password here. And then the next one is the REPL. This one is the master user, right? So we use the slave here instead. So slave. And now the next thing to change is the IP address. So you put the IP address of your web01 right here. So let me go ahead and delete this and copy the IP address of my web01 and paste it there. So now check the command again. We're trying to set like the web02, we're trying to set the values it needs to connect to the web01 server. So now you can see here, change master to master host. Now we are telling the server that, okay, this is the host, the database you are trying to read from. Like, this is the host of the database, the IP address of the server you are reading from. That's why we put the IP address of our web01 right here. Then the next thing to do is, when you try to log into this server, this is the username you're going to use, master user, which is the slave that we created. Then when you're trying to log into the server, this is the password you would use. That's also what we defined here. And then the log file and the position. I'm guessing the position is not here, is it? Yeah, it's actually still there. So now the position is the 749. If it's a different number for yours, just make sure you put that one there instead. Now after this is done, make sure you don't have any errors and then click the enter button. Now you can see query 0 rows affected. If this is the response you have, then you are fine. Other than that, you have an error, and then you should check some things or leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll respond to them as soon as possible. Now the next thing to do is we go back to the file. Now after changing the master and blah blah blah, we start slave. Now let me go ahead and copy this command, paste it here, start slave. Now you can see that's also query okay. But now let's check. That's basically all we need to do. But before we get to the next command, let's see what it's showing on the task 4. So here you can see after we get, like, this is the same thing we have on our database for the web01. If you remember that, you see it looks quite similar. As you can see, it's also different in sense of the position, right? So that means your number would also be different. Just make sure you use the number instead. As you can see here also, we have the bin 99009 stuff. Now let's go back to the web02 and see what's showing. Now you see here they're checking the status of the slave server. Let me copy this command and see if we have the same response. Oh, sorry about that. Let me copy this command, go back to the web02 and paste here and see what's actually showing. Now you can see it's quite similar, and you can see here also we're having the same response, waiting for master to send events. So chances are that yours will be different for this, because some certain times the speed may affect the data that is showing here. So what you need to do is just restart the server, and then let me just exit from the web02 server, exit command, and run sudo service MySQL restart, and that would make everything work if you have no errors. So now I'll log into my web02 again, and you see we still have the same data there. So now if I should run the show slave status again, we still have this. So that means the replication is actually working because it's waiting for the master to send an event. So now you can actually just go ahead and use your checker. I'll go ahead and do that now. But while we're waiting for the checker to check, let's actually test if it's working ourselves, right? What's the fun in that? So now let's go ahead and see what's going on right here. So now we are in our web01 server right now. I would insert some data and then see if it will actually replicate. So let me change database into the one that we use. Remember I said we use a specific database, which is the TYRELLCORP. So this database is one that is replicating, right? So let me use database. Let me run use TYRELL. Now you can see I've changed database. So now the next thing to do is try to see the data that is there. So let me say show tables. Now we have only one table in this database, Nexus 6. So let's see what's in the table. Let me select star from Nexus 6. Now you can see we only have one column. So let's say we have the row and then Jarvis, the ID and then the name, which is 0 and Jarvis. So let's insert some data into this. But first, let's go into the web02 and see if we have the same data. Then now let me do this. Let me say use Tyrell Corp. Now also select star from Nexus 6. Now you can see we have the same data, right? But now what's the whole idea of the replication is that whenever we make changes to our database on the web02, it needs to be copied or replicated on the web01. So that means whatever you do to this should be affecting this server. So let's go ahead and see if that's actually true. So let me insert into Nexus 6 values 8 and then now this should insert into our database, right? So now we have, so now the query is correct. So we have the query okay, one row affected. Now let's select our data again and see if it actually works. So now select star from Nexus 6. You can now see we now have a different entry, which is database user. Now let's see inside of our web02 if we also select again. Remember I didn't insert in web02. I just want to select again and then we have that data also there. So that means this is working perfectly fine, because we now have whatever is happening to the web01 is now being replicated on the web02. So let me try this again. Change some things. Let's say now change the ID also to 9. Then we have one row affected. If I should list select star from this table also, we have the next updated data. So this is working perfectly fine and we are officially done with this. Now the checker should be done, so we have the all green. That means we did this correctly and the replication is now working fine. So that's all from me. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section, and once again, please like the video, subscribe to my channel for more. Now for the task 5, actually that's just a single file. We don't need to do anything on the server, just we have the backup.sql stuff. So just go ahead and check this, and then if you have any questions about this also, just leave a question for me in the comment section and I'll respond as soon as humanly possible. Goodbye everyone.